We are going to start straight away. I think Anne is probably going to keep time. I don't know how you can indicate, maybe with a little thing, but we're going to start with our first two guest speakers, who are Tayla and Daniel from the ABALOBI project, a project to support small-scale fishers. And I'm not going to introduce them, the project, much more, because they will speak more eloquently to that. So welcome, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Geordie. Should I present my screen? Can we do that?
Yes, you can.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here, and amazing to see everyone on a Saturday morning looking super perky. While Tayla presents her screen, quick note about myself. Other than being slightly freezing, I've just had a surf at Llandudno, made the most of the early morning. Yeah, passionate about the ocean, studied environmental science, and yeah, just really excited to talk to you a bit about what we've been doing, judging from the interests in the room. Yeah, I think you're all going to really enjoy what we have to say, talking about not only small scale fishers and fisheries, but the business part of it as well, and the people part of it as well. So I feel like what we're doing and what we've done really is trying to include this complex kind of ecosystem that we're living in, from people to business. I think Tay has lost her camera, but is presenting.
No, I can't actually present my screen. I think, Geordie, if you're the host, you have to let me do it.
Anne has to allow you to.
Sorry, could you try now, Tayla?
Yes, okay.
There we go. Great.
There we go.
Okay, is that working for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're excited to be here today to explain a little bit more about what we do. Essentially, Dan and the team, we have basically worked closely with fishers, restaurants, and other marketplace streams to build the beginning of South Africa's very first marketplace-supported fishery using traceability technology. So our work, Dan and my work specifically, is around implementing our marketplace. So we basically try and make it all happen. So just a bit of an overview of where we're going to go today. So we're going to introduce you to small-scale fisheries. So what are they? We're going to start with framing the worldviews that actually exist around environmental problems. So I'm sure you guys have been introduced to that sort of thing. We're going to speak to who fishes matters. We're going to explain how ABALOBI came about, how we work, and basically looking at scaling our operation and what would that mean for fishers. Great, so small-scale fisheries are the informal, important sector of fisheries that sustain and generate the nutrition, the livelihoods, employment, and income of an estimated 250 million people around the world. So they present an indispensable component of the fisheries sector. Essentially, small-scale fisheries are reckoned to actually employ over 50 million people worldwide, most of which represent rural, poor communities in developing countries. So this is largely because small-scale fishers are marginalized. They present a complex array of challenges linked to their governance, and they're characterized as price takers in the marketplace, mainly because they lack the capacity necessary to better their position in the value chain. Before we dive into how ABALOBI came about, it's actually just important for us to ensure we start on the same starting page. Basically, what I'm showing you here is that if you look on the left, you see that first circle is the technocratic and reductionist worldview, which has mainly dominated the modern era. Essentially, what it says is that environmental problems are we can know them perfectly well. We believe that the world can be perfectly known and reduced according to the scientific method. But more and more, this worldview is being challenged for its neglect to actually acknowledge that the world is complex, that it requires broad and alternative approaches to understand and solve its environmental problems. So more specifically, we need to accept that people are part of the environment. There are interactions and relationships that exist between people and the environment that can't be overlooked. And too often decisions related to the management, specifically of small-scale fisheries, have neglected to value the voice of small-scale fishers and their local indigenous knowledge. So what is ABALOBI? So firstly, the word actually means fisher in Xhosa. At ABALOBI, our overarching vision is to contribute towards thriving, equitable, and sustainable small-scale fishing communities in South Africa and beyond. So we try to achieve this through the joint development of technology with fishers. So we're currently registered as a non-profit organization that has raised grant funding to get us where we are today. So we've begun our journey as a social enterprise with the goal of actually scaling our operation towards selling and implementing our software as a service. So we have developed a suite of 5 apps that you can see on your screen. And these apps we try to use to engage with and disrupt the fisheries value chain. So our approach focuses on achieving tangible milestones driven by these mobile apps that basically relate to seafood traceability, fully documented fisheries, fair and transparent supply chains, community cohesion, and entrepreneurship as important precursors to launching longer-term ecological improvement. So what does all of that mean? Essentially, we recognize that there is a need for inclusion and recognition of fishers if we are serious about sustainability. Too often we focus on the ecological aspect of sustainability, but in fact, there are actually 3 pillars to sustainability. So it's not just ecological, it's economic and social. And so at ABALOBI, we aim to use technology as our tool to include all 3 of those pillars of sustainability. So in rethinking that notion of sustainability in the context of small-scale fisheries, ABALOBI has chosen to take a radical approach to disrupting and reinventing seafood supply chains and related food systems in South Africa. And most specifically, our 2 successful apps on your screen is our ABALOBI Fisher app and our Marketplace app, which enable fishers to record their information, so log their catches, and then access a market they previously could not. So essentially, context is very critical in this conversation around small-scale fisheries, which basically operate as an informal business. They receive cash in hand. They're often hindered from being able to prove their income at a bank and access a loan. What's more is actually that the ability for fishermen to access markets is hindered by the need for cold chain and logistical infrastructure, which they often lack the financial resources to have. Cool, I'll hand over to Dan at this point.
Thanks, Tay. I think I'll rely on you for the slideshow change. I'll just shout next slide. So, I mean, from what Taylor's framed, so much of what she said as far as our goal in including fishers, the root of that has come from including them in the conversation around not just this app or these different apps being something that's a good idea and something that maybe someone sitting at the university or in a tech development firm has come up with. The idea here is let's get fishers to engage in the conversation and to actually fulfill a need of theirs. Where are they struggling? Let's include these fishers in a conversation around sustainability, but let's build tech that's relevant to them. So a fisher sitting up the west coast or up the south coast, I'm sitting here in Cape Town, and there are fishers here in Cape Town in somewhere like Cork Bay that some of you might have heard about that struggle with what Taylor's described, access to market being one in particular. And I'll tell you more about the marketplace and how that actually works. But yeah, the point here is that let's include these fishers in this conversation. Next slide. This is a really good example. This man standing is David Shoshola, who's been one of the champion fishers that has come along with us on this journey and in fact led this journey. You'll hopefully recognize David from Open Water. He was the character in that feature that we suggested that you watch that little clip. I hope any of you have, all of you have. If you haven't, go and have a look because it really does articulate the story really well. And I think probably far better than what Tayla and I could do it, because you're actually seeing it from the perspective of the fisher. You're realizing that David lives in a shack. David struggles to put fuel in his boat to go fishing tomorrow. David arrives back at the harbor and historically wouldn't be able to sell his fish. And if he did, he'd have to stand on the side of the road. He'd have to haggle. He'd be a price taker. He's not setting the price. As Tayla mentioned, he struggles with transport. He struggles with access. And that's the reality of so many fishers. In fact, the majority of fishers and many people in South Africa. So the idea here is let's be innovative. Let's take the tools. Let's take technology. The fact that we're having this online conversation, let's include these fishers digitally. And this is the context and this is the setting where that started to happen and has continued to happen. Next slide. A fisher like this, I wanted to put this man's face up, Worm John. Do you think that Worm John is using pen and paper to record his activity, whether it's when he went out to sea, what he's caught, how much he's caught, what his expenses were, or is he using a mobile app, a smartphone that you guys will all be very familiar with? The idea here is let's get a smartphone, this piece of technology, in a fisher's hands, and let's record data. Let's record this information. Let's capture it. So often that's written on pen and paper, while it's well kept, salty conditions, things get lost. We need to have a digital record of our operation, and this tool really has helped that. Next slide. So ABALOBI Fisher, this is where it all begins. So it's a digital logbook, and a bit from what Tayla was saying, this provides data. So data not only to connect to the internet, but to record your catch. This is a platform for empowerment. This is a platform for legitimacy, fishers' voices being heard. And really it's so important that this gets recorded and that fishers are working together and collaboratively. Next slide. Okay, so how does this crazy idea work? We had a group of fishers up this west coast in Lambert's Bay, 3 fishers on one particular day that were prepared to use this tech that we'd designed, an app where fishers could log their catch. So essentially fishers launch, and these guys are using hand lines. So it's not deep sea fishing, it's not trawlers, it's not big nets, it's literally a small scale fisher. It's time. Is that me to start wrapping up? It is. Okay. Basically, fishers logging their catch and that record being digital and transported through. I'm going to ask to go to 2 more slides, if you don't mind, Geordie. Thanks.
No problem.
Payments is an important part of this conversation. So the ability for fishers to be paid digitally and have a record of their catch, that's been so important in including them in the conversation. And then the last slide. The actual marketplace. So how does this work? So this value chain that Tayla described is being captured digitally. And those QR codes that many of you will be familiar with, whether you're paying with SnapScan, that's where this information sits. And it enables a buyer, like a chef or a restaurant, to trace that fish back to its actual source. It also allows the patron or the person eating that fish to be able to send a text message to that fisher to say, thank you for your catch, you're being recognized and appreciated and paid fairly for their catch. That's been an incredibly important value proposition for the fishers, where they're getting a fair price for their actual catch. Great. I've got lots to say, but yeah, hopefully we can get into some of the details in our breakaways.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much, Daniel. There's always more to say, and that was so fascinating to after watching those videos. I'm not going to talk long because I'm going to ask Steve, who's also got a lot to say, to jump straight in so that we can hear from him and then go into the breakout rooms. Steve, you should be able to share your screen if you need to. Yeah.
Okay, is it sharing now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thanks very much. That was really inspiring. ABALOBI, I love it. It's wonderful. I'm working with some programs that are dealing with apps for farmers that would use satellite data, measure soil moisture, do all kinds of things, and it's really great what we can do now with technology and access. So I just want to check you. Are you seeing the full slide?
No. No, we can't see the full slide. Go into presentation mode. Yeah, there we go. We can see your next slide as well.
Oh, okay. Well, this is not the screen you want to share then. Hang on a second.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so Geordie, thanks very much for this opportunity. This is brilliant. Thank you for your time, and it's great that you are taking time out on your Saturday to look at this. And I was inspired by some of the ideas that things you want to do. They all sound brilliant. All those skills are needed in this world. Okay. So basically, our situation in Southern Africa is that climate change is a reality. We've just coming out of some serious drought in most of Southern Africa. Right now, central Southern Africa is not in drought, but we've just had some of the worst droughts experienced. We've also got a situation where within Southern Africa, the population doubling by 2050. So it's going to be a real challenge to feed that many people, to give that many people access to water, to industry that requires water. You can see this is a description there that red lines is what they say. The 850 millimeters is generally what you need for rain-fed crops to survive and foster. This is changing. It's going to move further north. And the one place that's expected to be slightly wet, and certainly South Africa, is the Eastern Cape, but the rest is basically looking drier and hotter. I'm working on a project that's funded by America. It's called by USAID Southern Africa. They're in partnership with SADC. And SADC is a very important institution. In a time when the world seems to be dividing into countries, Southern Africa, and ironically, I think coming out of the struggle against apartheid, they used to be called the frontline states. And now when apartheid ended, it became a development community. Basically, these are countries we know. These countries were divided by colonial powers who had no idea or care about the natural system and where the water flowed, etc. It would be like a battle for the borders. That's why borders are straight. The world is not straight. SADC is trying to work across those borders. One of the areas where they're collaborating a lot on is water, because water, for example, the Okavango, as you'll see over here, I'll just go to this map, rises in southern Angola. Most of the water nearly all the water, 99% or 98% for the Okavango Delta comes from Angola. It crosses through Namibia. That blue line is the outline of the basin, of the Okavango Basin. There is an organization called OCOCOM, the Permanent Commission, and it's made up of for the Okavango, it's made up of the 3 countries, and they discuss issues around water. Because you can imagine if people in Cape Town realize now when one catchment dries out, downstream users get affected. So, and then another area where they're collaborating, one of you mentioned you wanted to deal with nature conservation, is what are called TFCAs, Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas. So the Kavango Zambezi is the largest trans-frontier conservation area in the world. It unites 5 countries, all with one objective, to sustainably manage that land so the environment can thrive, as well as improve the livelihoods of the 2.67 million people that are living in that landscape. Many of whom either don't know they're in national parks, many of whom are completely reliant on the natural resource. So, our program that I'm working with works with those 2, as well as in the Greater Limpopo and the Limpopo Basin. So Southern Africa is something I think about a lot. And it's a privilege actually to work with these organizations that are really trying to make a difference, I think, in the right way. So when people say, okay, what do you do? So this kind of program is focusing on 4 things. One is what I talked about, is trying to manage the transboundary water resources and conservation areas. The other is access to safe, sustainable drinking water and sanitation services. What do human beings use water for? They use water for, first of all, growing foods, drinking, but a lot of it is also, as we know now coming out of COVID, is the importance of water, being able to, for hygiene, domestic use, etc. And unfortunately, most people still do not have this in a reliable way. Because climate change is a reality, the work that I do really focuses on that third component, which is how do communities become more resilient? How can they deal with the kind of shocks that, for example, now COVID brings out? You know, where if you put your whole livelihood on a tourism industry, which now can't function, for example, do you have other means of making income? You know, can you bounce back from a shock to the system that you were not expecting? So I'm doing a lot of work around that. And then that's a colleague of mine is focusing on the biodiversity and ecosystems, but all of this is integrated. So the program, when we look at things, we look at it in that way. So I wanted to make it bigger, but you build resilience by not running away from nature, by working with nature. You need organizations to work with. People need to be able to access, when we talk about governance, who is controlling access to a protected area, who is controlling access to across a border. Those are institutions of government. You need them and people to be working better together. And water, without water, there's no life, there's no system. So it's critical. So we are one area I want to, I'm just aware of time. I want to take us to show us, I think, practically some of the kind of work we're doing. So this area here is this is South Africa. This is Kruger National Park. This is the Olifants Basin. It's the biggest catchment area in the Limpopo River Basin. Unfortunately, it gets highly polluted right at the start by where we get a lot of our energy from. So you were talking about renewable energy, some of you. That's definitely the way forward. Hopefully this area can move away from coal-based energy to more renewable forms of energy. But this area is highly polluted. But the area I want to talk about, where we're doing a lot of work now as a program, is what's called Masinjia Dam. This is in Mozambique, the largest dam in the Limpopo River Basin. It was built by the Portuguese to feed large agricultural schemes. This one in a place called Chokwe, and in Shai, there's 30,000 hectares of beautiful land which could be irrigated by the Limpopo River. It has never been used to its potential. So we're trying to find a way, by working on the dam, we try and manage the water flow down this, and then working with these stakeholders up and down to involve them in the management of the dam. So we're doing some interesting work there, and we think this is a way to build resilience. And why is it building resilience? Because we're going to try and work with the Upper Olifants catchment as well around what will the impact of the climate change be? What will the impact be of moving mining away from coal to other forms? Is there agricultural potential, etc.? So the work I do, I love it. I used to travel a lot before the 27th of March. I used to make Geordie and others very jealous on Facebook, saying this is where I'm working. This is the people I'm working with in Shai. These are the engineers. This is a situation they got you, a very clever little piece of technology. This is the sewer from the city. It runs into the Limpopo River, which then goes out to sea. So, I mean, it's not great, but that's the only system they've got. Well, how most of the world works. If you live next to a city, even Cape Town, I think you're discharging a lot of your sewage straight out into the sea. This is a clever piece of technology. It's a piece of thick plastic. And it stops when there's a flood, the water coming back up the pipe, which would then come up back into your toilet. Simple technology making a big difference. I'm just aware of time. So this is what the kind of work we're going to be doing. We're going to be trying to work with them on managing their sewage a bit better, advise them on, this is a well. A lot of people are just getting their water from this. We're going to change the way they manage their well to improve it, make it cleaner, probably drill on the top of this mountain over here down to cleaner water, and then time out. Okay. I think in a small group, if you're interested, you can come and hear the rest.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut you. So interesting.
No, that's fine.
This kind of speed dating has its disadvantages. So we're now going to break into our breakout rooms, and with the remaining time available, which is 15 minutes, we're going to just have half and half. So get your questions ready, short, pithy, and you can break us. Probably going to move quickly onto the next sessions, but I wanted to say thank you so much to Tayla and Daniel and to Steve. You're most welcome to stay, but you might have busy days. So I think that I think the questions were really great in the breakout rooms, and I think it was so useful, the kind of similarities around kind of a systemic way of thinking that came through in both presentations. So thank you so much. That was really brilliant. And in the meantime, we are welcoming Debra, who's going to wave her hand, who is, and I'm not sure if Angus has joined the room yet, or whether I'm going to, gosh, there's so many faces now on this thing, I can't see. But I think what we will do is, we have the next session is around sustainable commercial farming of communally owned land, which is what Debra is going to speak about, farming in the Eastern Cape for sustainable livelihoods. And then we will also have Angus McIntosh, who's talking about regenerative farming in the Western Cape here, at next to Spear. So welcome to, here's Angus, just in time for me to say welcome to him. I have allowed, we're going to start with you, Debs, if that's okay.
That's fine.
And we will go straight into, because we are tending to run over a little. You can share your screen and we'll go straight into your presentation. If we can try to keep it to as close to 10 minutes as possible. And then welcome Angus. We will have your presentation after that. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to put up a presentation, but just so that you can see my face for a moment. I hope you're having a good morning so far. Before I do put up it's a very brief presentation that will stick to 10 minutes, George. I am going to assume that everyone has read the background presentation that was circulated with the program. If you haven't, you might not really understand what I'm talking about today, because the focus of my talk this morning is going to be more about the why, and then also the head, heart, hands aspects of the model that's going to program. But let's get going and then we can talk afterwards. Can you all see that?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. So Kentani and Mbashi, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the area, but it's in rural Eastern Cape. It's about the Kentani is actually in the Louw district. Yeah?
I don't think we can see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but I can't see your screen.
Can't see the screen.
No.
Okay, let me just try. Let me just try. Okay, let me try again. No?
Yes, brilliant.
Okay, all right. So as I was saying, Kentani and Mbashi is, Kentani's in the Louw district of the Eastern Cape. And Mbashi is the next door district. They're about 2 hours from East London, in what was once called the Transkei, is now called the Wild Coast. And before I get into the actual initiative, I'm going to just have a little brief say about Wiphold, what Wiphold is, or not what we're polled is, but rather what informs our business operations. And that also then informs why we're involved in Hintani and Mbashi. So our very existence and day-to-day operations are dedicated to one purpose, the sustainable economic empowerment of Black women through our business operations. Now, for many organizations, that type of activity, economic empowerment of Black women or transformation programs or development programs, is often considered to be CSI, but for us, it's actually at the heart of our business and informs every business decision we make, including our focus on what we call social impact business strategies. And those are about aligning our company's core business activities with the country's transformational and development challenges. And what I'm talking to you about today is an example of that. But before we get into that, let's just pause a bit to say, why did we get into agriculture, which we started doing in 2014? And there were really two key drivers. The one was a positive in-house view on the growth and investment prospects of the sector. And if we look at the COVID economic environment at the moment, the agricultural sector is actually one of these sectors, one of the few sectors that's offering glimmers of hope for the South African economy. But another driver was a view that the sector, much like the financial services sector, is key to addressing many of the country's transformational challenges. And with the right interventions can play a big role in addressing poverty and inequality. But we weren't, back in 2014, we weren't seeing sufficient evidence of success in that regard, and decided to apply some of our own social impact business strategies to the sector to see what we could do. And that led to the initiative that we're involved in, which is currently focused on the farming of 2,500 hectares of maize and soybeans mainly for crop rotation, with over 2,300 importantly communal landowners from 34 villages in rural Eastern Cape. Why did we do it? Now, the areas that we're working in are amongst the poorest rural areas in South Africa. And in a way, we thought if we could get the model right there, we could get it right anywhere. And we've been working in the areas since 2006, initially through a financial inclusion initiative. And during that time, we had focused quite a lot of our activity on small-scale enterprise support. But as we got to understand the economic realities and the social realities of the areas, we came to the conclusion that if there was going to be any chance of turning around the deep economic and social destitution, you really were talking, and still are in a sense, talking about dying towns, then large-scale commercial investments were needed, of which smaller-scale enterprise initiatives could develop. That was the one reason that led to us conceptualizing our operation. Another was that in terms of agricultural potential, that area has huge agricultural potential. And our vision is to, over time, build a commercially sustainable agricultural value chain in the districts, involving a mixed farming operation and downstream agro-processing. The Eastern Cape is one of the most populous parts of South Africa, and yet most food is imported into the province, despite it having great agricultural potential in a lot of the areas of the province. And Eastern Cape is also very far from everything, so the road distances are very, it takes ages and long distances to travel to get stuff into the provinces. So that means very long value chains, and stuff tends to be imported in at a premium. So what one's wanting to do at a country level is shorten those value chains and bring food production, and with that enhanced food security, into the province. What are we trying to achieve with this particular initiative? Well, we want to prove that a large-scale commercial agricultural model can work on communal land if an aggregator model is used. We want to enhance food security. We want to enhance things like income generation and poverty reduction, but importantly also social cohesion amongst communities, self-esteem, dignity, systemic change, and the crowding in of assets and infrastructure. Many would say that the decision we took to embark on this investment and initiative was an unusual business decision. For example, The area is devoid of the infrastructure that commercial farmers can usually rely on. So the kind of supporting infrastructure you're going to find in places like the Free State or in Mpumalanga, where most maize is produced in South Africa, is just not there in the Eastern Cape. Input suppliers, the people that are going to supply the farming inputs, are just also not located in the province. Most things have to be imported in. And what you want to ideally start achieving is that those suppliers start setting up shop in the province. Then another challenge would be that the soils, whilst very high potential, were very degraded from years of inactivity and the fields littered with rocks and trees. But decades ago, this area was once a maize belt. And there are many reasons, a topic for another time perhaps, about why people left the land, but they did, for various reasons, leave the land. And then also climate change studies are pointing to the Eastern Cape as the next frontier for grain production in the medium term when places like the Free State become too hot to farm. Another challenge would be that we wouldn't be partnering with just a handful of farmers or landowners, but with thousands, given the nature of communal land ownership. And we can talk more about that in Q&A if you want. And then also the landowners that we were partnering with were deeply mistrustful of initiatives like this one because of years of broken promises from government, but also the private sector, and a lot of horrible fly-by-night schemes. On the issue of communal landowners don't have tenure, they don't have title deeds, and because of that, financial institutions don't go there. So vast tracts of very arable land, but financial institutions just won't invest because they don't have the security of title deeds. So in a way, what Whipple did by going in was we acted as a risk mitigant and catalyst to show that, look, you know, this can be done, and then working to crowd in the financial support infrastructure and other such things. And we found as the initiative has gone on that our community partners have now begun to share that risk mitigating role with us. So it wasn't a business as usual decision. It wasn't, you know, a lot of people would look at the business case and say, whoa, this doesn't make sense. But what we were doing, what we're still doing, is taking a long view, investing in the future of our business and of the country. The model as it's unfolded is proving to be different from anything that's been tried on communal land before, and in some respects even unique. And a few of the things that maybe make it different would include that we didn't wait until we had the perfect plan. We certainly did some work, we did some planning, but we didn't wait until we'd crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. We went in boots and all and then developed the plan as we went and continued to do so. We also place equal emphasis on the community engagement as we do on the farming operation. For us, it's flip sides of the same coin. If the one fails, the whole thing fails. And then, this might sound trite and not very erudite, but we work very, very hard. There's an inordinate amount of heavy lifting required, and the challenges are far greater than we ever anticipated. You know, at the end of the day, there really is no substitute for hard work. This is certainly not about a quick buck. We're obsessed also about developing a relationship of mutual trust and respect with our community partners. So we engage, and some of the pictures on this slide give you a sense of some of those meetings that happen all the time, and full transparency in terms of reporting and information sharing. We also insist on best of breed farming inputs and operations. Previous initiatives have failed for cutting corners. So, you know, it's a poor area, it can use cheap seeds, cheap fertilizer, whatever it might be. This must be on the same level as a commercial operation in Mpumalanga or anywhere else in the maize producing areas of South Africa. And then lastly, a responsive strategy for building community sustainability. So rather than following a textbook academic approach, and we do get criticized by some academics and development specialists out there, but we've said rather than following that kind of approach, we're going to allow the conditions on the ground to tell us how this initiative should organically develop. what makes it worthwhile, and there are many things, but briefly, you know, it's feedback from our community partners along the lines of, I used to work in Joburg and would travel home past large farms in the Free State, which went on as far as the eye could see, and I never dreamt that this could happen here in Kentani. Or we've been taken out of poverty, we are no longer hungry. You know, that kind of statement happens often, and for me it's truly humbling, and it's taught me that in an area like this, a little bit can make a huge difference. We no longer have to travel from our village to town to buy food, we have a full plate. That's from a landowner in a village called Nombanjana, which is about 36 kilometers from Kentani town. But it's 36 kilometers on a terrible, terrible gravel road. So it takes at least an hour to travel that road one way. Taxi fares are also very expensive. So it's a statement like that says a lot. We're employing our youth on the project and showing them that they can work here and don't need to go to the city to look for a job. Most of the landowners, our partners, are very old, and we have also launched in 2019 a youth program to draw more youth into the initiative. Someone saying, I worked in the mines where it's hard to get a job these days. Now I can stay here and farm. Crime has gone down. Kentani and Mbashi both have very high crime rates, some of the highest in the country, including, sadly, a very high murder rate. But the station command at Kentani has said that they've observed that since this initiative started, crime levels, stats are starting to trend downward, particularly in the villages that we're active in. Someone saying we'd stopped working together as a community. Now we are doing that again on this project. That speaks to social cohesion and is very powerful. We're also finding that as we do our ongoing community training, we no longer only focus on farming training or business management training. We've now also introduced modules that speak to leadership development, conflict resolution, and those sorts of things, because that is now required within the village operating in. Someone saying,
Dave.
Sorry?
Our time is up.
Okay, I'm not much, it won't be much longer,
Okay.
George.
Cool.
Someone saying I've now been able to move back from Cape Town and build a house. And then one of my favorites, a man in his 70s who says, before this project, my body was weak. It was telling my head that my life was ending. Since the project started, my body is strong and my mind feels young again. I feel like a young man. On a personal note, I knew not a thing about growing maize when I took this initiative on. So for me, it's been an incredible growth journey. I've learned from someone like Samson, who runs the operation in Kentani on the left in this picture. And then lastly, this is a pic of some of our youth program students conducting crop analysis at Dundash village, one of the 34 villages, in March. We've since completed the harvest of this field. Its yield was 7.5 tons per hectare, which any farmer will tell you is pretty decent. That's it. Thank you for letting me share this with you.
Thank you. So amazing. You will see in the comments. Very inspiring. Thanks, Debs. Really great.
Mm-hmm.
Can we welcome Angus and Angus McIntosh, who has famously left his life as a stockbroker, which is we thought would be a potential path for many of the Hilton young aspiring boys, but to move into something that's completely different and also a different view of agriculture from what we've just heard. So welcome, Angus, and if you would like to take the floor straight away. So that we...
Morning, Geordie. Morning, everybody. I'm going to try and talk as quickly as possible and leave as much time as possible for Q&A. When is the Q&A? Immediately after this?
Immediately after, yeah.
Cool. So listen, I'm not very skilled at Zoom. We've been very lucky that on the farm here, we haven't needed to use much Zoom. So you need to tell me how I'm going to put my presentation on the screen. How do I share a screen? Do I just press this?
Okay, at the bottom of your thing, there should be a green button that says share screen when you hover over the bottom line.
Okay. I think I'm getting there.
There we go.
Cool.
And then just go into presentation mode.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about myself. I was at the Balgown Technical, which at least is a school that Hilton refers to my class as. I studied management accounting at Stellenbosch. I tried a career at kayaking. I wasn't very successful at that. Paddling. I then bailed and went to London. I got a job at Goldman Sachs. I sold equities there for just a bit more than 4 years. These are two of my bosses at Goldman in the picture. I left Goldman because I didn't want to go to Tokyo where my promotion was. I was promoted to go and do derivative sales. And we just had our second child and realized that they were going to grow up in the banker lifestyle, and we just didn't want that to happen. I mean, at the time I was very happy at Goldman. I didn't know I was going to become a farmer after that. So what I did is we came back to South Africa and we were going to build a house, and we ended up through a long path building a clay house. And that sort of started getting me thinking differently from my class, Goldman Sachs, Stellenbosch University thinking, which is very conventional. A big thing in my life was reading this book, June of 2008. It's an incredible book about the world's food systems. And the central character in the middle part of the book is a guy called Joel Salatin, S-A-L-A-T-I-N. And I finished reading this book. I said to my wife, I want to farm like Joel Salatin. So in December 2008, I started farming out of Zimbabwe and mentor for 3 years. We've established a brand called Farmer Angus. We do, at this stage, beef, pork, eggs. In fact, I sold 85% of my egg business to my staff in April. We're busy listing with Checkers, which is a laborious process, but hopefully is going to be a big shot in the arm for us. We've really toiled under COVID because restaurants and hotels were 60% of our client base, and they disappeared overnight. So the obvious question is, why do we farm the way we do? So we practice what's called regenerative agriculture. I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to look at my TED talk. And most people, certainly in the stockbroking days, didn't care at all about agriculture. I mean, who cares about farmers and who cares about the land? What people don't realize is that the single most destructive thing to human beings and to the planet is agriculture. Human beings are very sick. Whether you look at cancer rates or obesity or whatever it is, we shouldn't be in the state that we are, and it's because of our environment and obviously the food that we eat. So this picture here is conventional beef production. 99% of all beef in the world is produced like this. They're called feedlots. In the background is corn, is what they fed. They're not designed to eat corn. These animals are herbivores. They're not grainivores, or chicken shitivores, which is what's also fed to them. Another big problem, of course, is deforestation. Now, you might think this is not impacting us directly because that's what's happened in Mozambique over 20 years. But it's such a big country, and destroying an ecosystem like that has huge ramifications all around the world. We're one world. The world's designed to function as a whole, not destroy parts of it. The other reason why we are practicing regenerative agriculture, which is all about building things up, is the nutritional content of food, which has been declined for 100 years. It's one of the reasons for obesity. Human beings are desperate for nutrients, so they just keep eating because their food is devoid of nutrients. We can talk for ages if you want about veganism and vegetarianism and how that's not an answer. This is a conventional wheat production facility. So yeah, I'm going to leave that kind of questions for later. This is a slide of the Brazilian rainforest, or actually what's left of the rainforest, because all the tall trees except for the Brazil nut trees have been cut down. Those tall trees you see in the picture are Brazil nut trees, which are protected by law, but they never stand by themselves in a forest, of course. So there was a giant forest. In fact, human beings cut down 36 football fields of rainforest every hour of every day to plant 4 crops that have no nutritional benefit to us. And that was one of the things that certainly from my class education and also Stellenbosch and even into my Goldman Sachs days, there's this constant belief that modern man is the cleverest thing that's ever been All technology is a wonderful thing. We're going to be saved by technology constantly. Life's just getting better and better, but it's the opposite is true. We're an incredibly stupid species. We're the only species that deliberately fouls our nest. Anyway, we talk a lot in our marketing and in our products about a thing called glyphosate, which every single South African ingests basically every day. It's a poison that is used on everything: wheat, corn, soya. And when you start investigating food and you look at the ingredients of food, you'll be absolutely shocked by how much corn is in food. This book I was referring to earlier, The Omnivore's Dilemma, what Michael Pollan does in that is one of the things he does is he takes a standard American meal, which is a McDonald's meal, and he puts 5 elements into a mass spectrometer. So a mass spectrometer is something that analyzes right down to the carbon atom. So I'm going to ask you guys to you can put it up on the comment section. Which of these 5 crops or 5 dishes has the least amount of corn in it? And the first one is a burger. The second one is chips. The third one is a dressed salad. The fourth one is a Coca-Cola. And the fifth one is an ice cream. So burger, chips, dressed salad, ice cream, and a Coke. Which of those has the least percentage of corn in? Okay, we'll come to that in the Q&A. The word regenerative agriculture is a mouthful. I'm hoping that this photograph can illustrate exactly what it means. So 2 things have happened prior to taking this photograph. The first thing is that all the seeds are the same, despite the fact on the right-hand side it looks incredibly lush. What happened is that to the right-hand side of my finger, the pigs have grazed. So we use pigs, we use cattle, and we use chickens for what we call rotational grazing. They have grazed on the right, and a few weeks after their manure and urine has sort of been processed into the soil, you have this flush of plant growth. Whereas on the left-hand side, the pigs hadn't grazed yet. Rotational grazing there's a very interesting TED talk by a guy called Alan Savory. It's a unfortunately not widely practiced method of grazing animals, which is why there's so much environmental destruction in the world, precisely because these type of methods are not used. But basically it involves a lot of animals in a small space for a short period of time. So we move these animals. You can see there's an electric fence, a red strand and a white strand going through the middle of the picture. They're waiting to be moved. We drop the fence and they move, and we move the cattle 3 times every day to fresh pasture. And then we wait 6 weeks before we regraze them. This was just a thing called a mineral lick thing. Those of you more interested in farming, we can talk about that. But it's a way that we get minerals into the soil that have been through an animal. So the minerals are biologically available. And it's important to understand the difference between biology and chemistry and physics. You know, most people think of soil. Well, most people don't think of soil. But soil is what produces healthy food, or healthy soil produces healthy food. And soil is not just a chemical thing. There's physics involved, and then there's biology involved. In fact, there are more microorganisms in one handful of healthy soil than there are human beings on Earth. There are 1 billion soil microbes in a teaspoon of healthy soil. There's just a picture from our butchery. We dry age our carcasses. Anyone who wants to ask questions about dry aging and wet aging, we can talk about those. We started an experiment recently with a thing called beef in a box, where you buy a 10 kg packet of beef, but 20% of that is bone broth, because 20% of a carcass is bones. Only 1% of a carcass is fillet. And this is just to sort of conscientize people about eating nose to tail, or eating the whole animal. Pet products, super big market. What else is there? Okay, eggs. So 96% of South Africa's laying hens live like this, in metal cages. What does that mean? It means that 96% of the people who eat eggs choose that life for the chicken. These are our hens. They are we don't use the word free range because free range is consumer fraud. These are outdoor hens. These are things, the things in the background is called an eggmobile. Our hens live in eggmobiles. We move them every single day to fresh pasture. This is where your bacon, Geordie, yeah. Geordie, you got your hand up. Must I stop or do you want to ask a question?
I'm saying your time is nearly up. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, Angus, if you can round up.
Yeah. This is conventional pork. This is our pork. We make our own charcuterie, which is adding value to pork. We're the only guys not adding nitrates and nitrites to our charcuterie. That's trying to avoid colon cancer. Pigs are a brilliant source of waste. Human beings love wasting things. This is whey. We grow vegetables behind the pigs. 85% of South Africa's chicken feathers get rendered and turned into chicken meal, which is fed back to chickens. What we've done in this picture is we've taken chicken feathers, we put them on our vineyards. So where the dark green rows are is where our vineyards are. I mean, it's in our Chenin Blanc vineyard, and we've only put feathers in the areas where it's dark green. Really important to try and use paper where you can. Plastic is a massive problem. I don't know if that's been covered in this theme. And I think there was a statistic out recently about how much plastic human beings consume in a year. I think it's a credit card, or it's a credit card a month, or some terrible. Can you close the door? Can you close the door? I'm on a Zoom call. And one of the last slides is about the social impact of what we do and how we work with our staff, which we can talk about. I think that's the penultimate slide. Yeah, the last slide is a quote by a guy called Wendell Berry. I'm not sure if any of you have read any of his work. What Berry basically says in this quote is that every single one of us is a farmer, because every time we eat, we authorize a farmer to farm in the way that they deem appropriate. And so you can choose whether your farming is regenerative or destructive. And that's a choice that we all have. Cool.
Thank you so much, Angus. Really food for thought, especially to a vegetarian like myself. We're going to move straight into the breakout rooms. And so we will have the remaining time in 2 sessions of Q&A. Wow, that all goes so fast. But it was really fascinating, both the presentations and the difference in presentations and challenges, and the discussion in the breakout rooms. So thank you so much to Angus and Debra for sharing your insights and struggles and procedures and thoughts, and the way you've gone about setting up these amazing and different projects. You're welcome to stay, but I know that if you slip away, then that's also fine. We're moving on to something that's a little bit different now, and that's more in the urban context. So we are welcoming both Himkar Singh and Erica Inches. I think Erica joined quite a while back, but I can't see her on my screen now. Himkar is a business operation. He's with the Compost Kitchen, which deals with recycling of organic waste and vermiculture. And there's a whole small business model that he's going to speak to. And then Erica Inches is going to speak to something that arose out of the COVID pandemic and the response in Cape Town with the Cape Town Together network, and how that's enabled actually sustainable or food security operations to become at least established in Cape Town. So welcome to both of you. And if we can start with Himkar, just to share your screen if you'd like to, but the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jody, and thanks everyone for the invite. I think it's a fantastic event that you're holding, and I wish I had something like this when I was in high school. So I want to share some different things with you, that perhaps things that you may not have come across as I did. But my journey into what I'm doing now started about 20 years ago when I was in primary school and we went to Rand Water, which is responsible for supplying water to Johannesburg. And they said to us that we would have water scarcity issues in the future if we didn't save water. But 20 years later, it was around 2017, we had severe drought in South Africa. So I thought they warned us 20 years ago, but this still happened, which means that we didn't do anything about it, even though we knew about the problem. So I left the country to study a master's degree in water management abroad. I lived in Germany for 5 months, and then I lived in Vietnam for 5 months, and then Jordan for 5 months, all part of that master's degree. And I was trying to understand water from all different aspects. And what I discovered was that it's actually, we're quite lucky that the previous speaker talked about the soil already. But what we need to do is put organic matter back in the soil, because the organic matter makes the soil act as a sponge. That is very important because when it rains, the soil is the first point of contact of a raindrop. And everything that happens downstream is determined at that moment when the raindrop hits the soil. Now 70% of land in South Africa is unaridable, which means you can't farm on it because it lacks organic matter. So I came back to try and figure out a way to fix South Africa's water system by putting organic matter in it. Now, if I came back and I just told everyone that, I don't think it would work because people don't listen. That problem is too far away from their daily experience of life. So what we developed was a business model where we collect organic kitchen waste from households, so food waste. We give the customers this small bin, which has aeration holes drilled into it at the top to reduce odors. And then they put it on the curbside on their collection day. And we come by and we collect it with an e-bike, which has a trailer. An e-bike is an electric bike, which has pedals as well. And then we take it to our earthworm farm, where the earthworms eat it, and they produce a vermicompost. Like this is the earthworm. They're called redworm or Icenia fetida. I have thousands of them. Can you all see? Fine. Just nod your head. Okay. They eat it, and then their poo is the brown part. It's quite small, quite fine. That is the compost. And that is the best type of compost that you can make because it is rich in a bacteria that is found only in that earthworm's stomach. So it's also got some undecomposed matter, see some grass, some leaves and stuff, which is carbon, which the previous speaker mentioned. That's what you need to be putting in your soil. So after we make the vermicompost, we give back the compost to the customer in a bag like this. It's 2 kilograms of vermicompost so that they can use it in their vegetable garden to grow food again. That's a concept called circular economy, where there's nothing leaving the system. It's all coming back and regenerating itself. And for that service, customers pay 190 Rand per month. So they pay 190 Rand to get their waste collected and to receive the compost at the end of the month. Now, this is part of a larger series of phases to get to an eventual goal of making South Africa an organic farming state. Because it turns out to do organic farming, you need to have good soil, and good soil means high organic matter, so high carbon matter. So if we transition South Africa to an organic farming state, we can automatically fix the water problem. I think that way is a better way than trying to tell everyone to fix the problem. I think you, in your school, you would have learned about recycling and overpopulations, oil spills. I learned about those same things in primary school and high school, but they've only gotten worse in 20 years. But we knew about it 20 years ago, so what's going wrong? What's going wrong is that the people, like me, who care about sustainability and can action it, they are going into NGOs and sustainability consultants, which is great for a while, but those two things don't make scalable impact. You'll find that society is driven by business, even if you like it or not. Even if you believe in triple bottom line, it's always bottom line that drives everything. So what we are doing is we are, on the NGO and consultant aspect, an NGO plays a certain role of meeting a short-term need in society. And it also does education. Those are the two purposes of NGO and or NPO. And sustainability consultants are people who go and work for, like engineering companies or consulting companies to advise other companies how to become more sustainable. But if you observe business very closely, you'll find that business doesn't change. They may install some solar panels, but they don't change the way they do business. And so what we need to be doing is starting business with these concepts at the core. I plead you, don't waste time trying to convince others to become more sustainable, because they don't do it. You need to start your own thing. So that's what we did. We started our own business with these concepts, and there's no shortcuts. Like even this bag is biodegradable when it's much easier to do plastic. There's even easier ways of doing organic waste recycling, but we use earthworms because it's best for the soil. So every aspect becomes part of these philosophies when you start it like that. So I hope that you will, if you really care, what you need to be doing is starting something of your own, starting a business. And what we call it is an impact business. And in this type of business, every second that you spend in the business is improving society. But it's very clear that it's a business. We want it to become like a Facebook, because that way, if it gets that big, it's just improving society. Other businesses, yeah, they get big, they create jobs, but they cause other impacts on negative impacts on society. But if you can create a business like this, then we're going to improve society. But that being said, I want you to not listen to anything I say. My job is only to catalyze thinking, something new, and get you to think of what is going on in society and how can you shift it? How can you create a new pathway and recognize that things have been the same for hundreds of years, and we need to change it. We need to shift completely. So you guys, I hope you will start something new, start something interesting, and do it completely different to how everybody else is doing it. So I invite you to just ask questions and let's brainstorm. Let's create something amazing.
Thank you so much, Himka. That was such a beautiful and really specific rendition of your journey. We're going to first move into Erica's presentation before we move to the breakout group. So welcome, Erica. I'm not sure if you're going to speak or if you wish to share your screen, but you should be able to do so.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. I hope you can see my screen.
We can't yet.
I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you, and you've just started. Yeah. If you want to
Okay.
put it on display mode, we can then see.
Thank you. I'm introducing you today to a movement, the CTT Food Grows Initiative. It's a COVID baby, and it's meant to be a way out of the current health, economic, and environmental pandemic that we find ourselves in now. It's also looking at a regenerative future and to live in the world we want to be, which is hopefully one of abundance and hope, and for every person, meaning and purpose. Who am I? I'm retired after 25 years of being a management consultant specializing in business intelligence systems, financial and management accounting, and a systems designer. I thought I could change the global corporates from the inside. That didn't work. I did in 1989 a green accounting thesis, and the world wasn't ready for that yet. I did my BCom at UCT in 2 years. Since then, I've been a palliative care nurse. I've been a whitewater rafting guide, a horse whisperer, and a competitive horse rider, snowboarder, and a rock climber. I have, since 2014, been down every single rabbit hole and conspiracy theory in the internet. And I have done my permaculture design certificate and as a facilitator, and I'm now a mentor and a life coach. What is the most important thing when you're looking at starting a movement, and that is your mindset. Before you can start influencing anybody else, you must influence yourself first. So first and foremost is your intention. Not just the agreed and publicized intention and focus and vision of the movement, but the intention of your heart of hearts. So really does the profit motive bring any meaningful change. It'll form your focus and drive. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning and affects all your decisions on your journey of becoming a movement. My heart of hearts for this was I did not wish to see South Africa become another beggared nation sold to China, but rather that this journey become an African emancipation legend. This purpose of your heart of hearts will give you genuine passion when engaging with the community to create collective agreements, because that is so, so important. It's got to come from the bottom up. And if everybody participates in deciding the vision and the focus and the intention, then a movement will have lasting momentum. Real leaders create movements that do not need them. So the vision of this initiative is to create a citywide food forest, community gardens and urban agriculture in every available space. Our focus right now is to support existing and help establish new gardens. And this is basically joining the dots and not reinventing the wheel. There's plenty of amazing people out there with amazing organizations, and they just needed this opportunity to speak to one another. The group itself exchanges freely knowledge and shares skills and shares resources. Underlying that, people behind the scenes start getting together and making businesses and making money. There's no reason why you can't do that. But our focus right now is grow what you can, using what you have, where you are, starting now. And we're not an organization. We're never going to be incorporated. We're never going to be an NPO. We've given ourselves an identity with a logo that was something that took the group 3 days of discussion for 24 hours to come up with this. And we're using the languages of the Western Cape. So all those words around say grow, but in the languages of Cape Town. We're of the commons, using common law, something that most people have forgotten about because everything's been incorporated. There's no rules and there's no leader, so there's nobody to lobby and corrupt, and there's no gatekeepers needed. So instead, people treat one another with kindness and a learning mind. So there's no money and no marketing involved here. This is not financed. So why did we want to do this? This group started as a collective desire to see communities self-emancipate and become food secure by growing their own food. We know that right now the current food aid system is not sustainable. When you talk about funding, you eventually run out of other people's money. And it's a survival imperative right now to grow your own food. So it's well known that food sovereignty is a cornerstone to stepping out of poverty. And I'd like to ask everybody on this call to maybe use the chat and say, what do they understand by food sovereignty? How is this achieved? Like I said, this community is open source and of the commons. We're joining the dots at the speed of trust. We're collaborating and co-creating and not reinventing the wheel. And we're ensuring that the previously hidden people and voices step up and take the space of the green economy. This is the first time ever where humanity's has the technology to connect, and we've all been told to sit in our rooms and think about what we've done. The first time that the world has kind of stopped for a bit. From my perspective, I thought about it as, what would you do with your time if you knew you were going to die of COVID? Most people don't like to think about death in general, never mind their own. But there's nothing like that to put things in perspective and help you prioritize what's really important to you. Not what you want family or society to think is important to you. If you're finding it difficult to meditate on, go rock climbing. This heart of hearts priority is the basis you need to decide what you want to do to make a regenerative change. Sustainability is no longer good enough. It needs to create something more than just the parts and be able to continue without needing you to drive it. So I decided my passion should become a reality. Why not live the world as if the world is as I want to see it? And I put together the ethics of permaculture, the principles practiced by Africa Burn, plus all my life experiences and skills to try and influence a real new normal. What could I do right now with what I have, and creating a group, leveraging the self-organizing community action networks, and create a platform that joins the dots, a safe space and a blank canvas that all participants paint their new worlds on. Should I die from COVID, it would be the last days well spent. So this is basically a WhatsApp group. It's the current lowest barrier tech in Cape Town. And there's also a Facebook group and a Google Drive. There are special interest breakouts and lobby groups also on WhatsApp. So we have got a lobby group that deals with land and water with members of the Western Cape Economic Development Partnership on it. And we also sit on the Food Aid Forum, and we use that to try and lobby government to start thinking about regenerative, not just sustainable, but regenerative ways of allowing communities to self-emancipate. Anybody that exists. And because it's a flat hierarchy, we can adapt fast to changing environment and community requirements. It's collaboration from the ground up. So no no's. No no's means no gatekeepers and no time wasted on rules. The community decides. As an admin, the admins just hold the space. We're required by law to make sure that we don't have fake news and things going on. But other than that, everything that happens is people starting their own things. And I can see through this that all the divides of the current South African society can be overcome if everybody just sits down and really listens to one another. And my fulfillment in this, always by helping others help themselves and seeing all these initiatives and sparks of action happening everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. Again, we've got similar theme, but different orientations towards those themes. We're going to go straight into the breakout room and engage for the next 20 minutes or so. Okay, well, welcome back to the main session as everyone comes back into the room. And just to thank Himka and Erica very much for a really interesting take on kind of small business and then partnerships that may lead into individual businesses. So thank you again, both of you, for your time. You're welcome to stay on, but if you slip away, that's fine. We're going to move into the last session for this afternoon now, and that's to look at to welcome Louw Prevost. I think he's here, yes, and Daniel Robinson is just in the waiting room, and I've admitted him, so that's great. So welcome, Daniel, as well. Louw's from Aribi Village, which is an enterprise incubator. So we've been looking at the kind of emerging small businesses and that, and this is how to get them all cooking at the same time. And then also Daniel Robinson, who's going to speak about energy poverty and the question of alternative energy as sustainable solutions, and he's from the organization Project 90 by 2030. So welcome, both of you. Let us start, if we can, with Louw. We've got 10 minutes for each presentation, and then we'll go into our final breakout rooms.
No problem. Hi, everybody. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Perfect. So, yes, at Aribi Village, we are what we call a startup incubator, and more precisely, an impact incubator. So basically, our mission is to make sure that people with amazing ideas have a place to join, to connect, in order to transform those ideas into business and develop their business in a sustainable way and have more impact. So this morning you heard lots of different stories, lots of different people who successfully transform their ideas into a business. But you have to know first that the definition of the social entrepreneur is said to be like a mission-driven individual who uses his individual skills and behaviors to solve a problem within a specific community, while making sure that he or she generates revenue to ensure the sustainability of the business. That seems easy when we say it like that, but when you understand that a social entrepreneur have to make the balance between empowering people, between making profit to become sustainable, and between as well making sure that we ensure sustainability of the resources for the planet, it becomes very hard. It might be simple to focus on people, and it's not. It might be simple to focus only on profit, and it's not. Many businesses that are focusing only on profit are doomed in a year, in 2 years. It's very hard to develop its own business. And it's also very hard as individuals, as communities, as businesses, to make sure that we take care of our planet. So when you have to manage all the three different notions together, making sure that people, profit, and planet are empowered and are viewed in a sustainable way, it becomes very, very hard. So to us, becoming an entrepreneur is the hardest job in the world. Actually, you can't wait for anyone to hold your hand and to help you develop your business, to help you transform your own ideas into something sustainable, into a business that can empower people, planet, and bring you some profit. When we talk about entrepreneurs, we quickly think of Elon Musk. We can even think of Beyonce and Jay-Z. They can be seen as entrepreneurs. They are multimillionaires, but when you think of it, nobody ever hold their hands to help them become what they are right now. They made themselves. They are self-made man and self-made woman. So the idea for a startup incubator is really to make you and to help you understand that yes, you might be the only one with a precise idea. Become an entrepreneur is all about innovating, so it's bringing new ideas to the table. So if you have an idea, stick to it. And nobody is here to hold your hand, but there are people that are here to help you, to guide you, to connect you to the right person, to the right entities to take these ideas further. And when you think about those different facts, considering that by 2030, the African continent will have the second largest workforce in the world, that Africa has the world's youngest population, that Africa has 9 of the top 20 fastest growing economies in the world, and that female entrepreneurs are, that Africa has the highest rate of female entrepreneurs in the world, it shows the capacity for Africa, and most precisely South Africa, to have the opportunity for growth and potential. But it only comes to you as individuals to take that opportunity further and to bring the ideas and transform them into sustainable businesses. So the whole concept of a startup incubator is to show people like you who have ideas, who want to innovate, that if other people have been able to do it, you can do it as well. And it only comes to you to be brave enough to push your ideas further. So what I really want to tell you today is that instead of absolutely wanting to become the next Elon Musk or the next Beyonce or Jay-Z, instead of wanting to replicate what has already been done, if you have ideas, if you take it, stick to it, and bring your minds, bring the collective together, and try to see if you have if you can bring this potential to create limitless innovation and change as a community, as a society, as a group of individuals. What will happen if we use our brightest mind to enhance individuals and to create sustainable businesses? This is exactly the mission of a startup incubator. To us, we help connect people with ideas. So that means that we provide entrepreneurs and people with ideas with programs for skill development, training, and support. And that we have built our program in a way that it connects all the different stakeholders of the business ecosystem. That can be seen, of course, as the entrepreneurs, so people with ideas that need an environment to bring forward those ideas. You have to connect with public authorities to access some specific funds, for example, or some specific grants. You have to connect with corporates that have the ability to open new market opportunities for your business, for example, or through the CSI strategy, they could empower your beneficiaries or your workforce. And most and foremost, the RWP incubator is designed around bringing the informal economy and the formal economy together. Because when you look at the African market or the South African market, there's a big gap between both informal and formal economies. And there's a lot of value there's a lot of value in the informal economy. And there's even more value in finding ways to connect informal and formal economies to make them work together. So what we want people to understand is that business with impact in Africa is all about finding the value where it lies. And most often it lies in the informal sector. And the idea is not to try and bring people from informal sectors to become the next Elon Musk. They have to create value from the informal sector for the informal sector. And that you can achieve that if you connect with the right people, if you connect individual from the informal market with the right person in public authorities, in academics, in corporates, in the formal markets that have the ability to trigger the ideas of those people and make them happen at a larger scale. For example, we have a program on food system. So we train entrepreneurs in the food system to seek innovative responses to fight over-industrialization, lack of accessibility, and lack of transparency. So the idea is really to bring all the stakeholders of the food ecosystem together around training programs, around networking events. And so in that program, we have developed that program around 3 focus areas, which are growing and farming, distribution and logistics, and product innovation, B2C. By training entrepreneurs on those 3 focus areas, you can see that we are going from farm to fork, and we have the capacity to connect, for example, farming communities with new distribution, new ways of distributing food, so enhancing access to food for informal areas, for example, and connecting them out as well with product innovation capacities. So we have the capacity to build our own food ecosystem within the program. And that's where the strength of an incubator lies. It's that it creates networks, it creates an ecosystem within which you have the ability to test your ideas, to connect with other businesses, to iterate your strategy. If one strategy doesn't work with a specific partner, we have the ability to connect you with a new partner that has a way of doing that is more in line with your objectives, with the impact you want to thrive. So you can always create a business alone, but it's way harder than entering a community where you have people working on the same problematics and that have similar challenges, but that also have different challenges. It's sometimes easier to work on an issue that someone else has. For example, if I have a farming community business, connecting small-scale farmers between each other to access new market opportunities, and that another entrepreneur of the incubator is working on a distribution solution, maybe he will have ideas to work on my own challenges, and I will have ideas to work on his own challenges, and together we can come up to a solution way more efficiently and way more quickly. So of course, during our programs, we go through different business skills training, going from helping you to work on your legal compliance, on your accounting. I think I'm up the 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go quick. So basically, incubator is tailored around workshops, masterclass, when we bring experts to present different solutions, different notions. We have learning journeys where we take entrepreneurs on site to meet with specific socio-economic context, with specific businesses. We have individual mentoring sessions where we pair experts in a specific field that have the ability to answer your needs and your objectives. And we work on 6 different drivers around data and technology, around the design thinking approach. It's all about tailoring your brain and in a way that it enables innovative approach. And it's all about connecting people together. What I just wanted to tell you today is that you are already the heroes of your own stories, and now it's all about innovating together. If you have ideas, again, stick to it, connect with each other, talk about it, and you'll make it for sure. The real heroes to us, more than Elon Musk and more than Beyonce and more than Jay-Z, it's those people that have the ability to create local empowerment opportunities through their businesses, empowering farming communities, empowering informal markets and spaza shops, increasing revenue for the local communities in South Africa. And there are plenty possibilities for you. So don't hesitate to come and meet us. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you very much. I can see that there may be some Hilton boys knocking on your door to be part of the incubator.
I hope so.
Let's move straight on to Daniel, our final input this morning before our breakout rooms. And
great, thank you.
Daniel, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, can I?
Louis, if you stop share, there we go. Yeah, perfect. We can see you've just put on display mode.
Okay, here we go. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go. All right, thank you, Jordy. So yes, my name is Daniel, and I am just going to be speaking to you this morning about an organization that I work for, Project 90 by 2030, and our involvement in sustainable energy, and touch a little bit on energy poverty. Is that something that's been a kind of focus that we've been looking at over the last couple of years? So Project 90 by 2030, we're an environmental justice organization. And essentially what we're about is we're looking at climate change and how it impacts people. I myself have specifically been working in youth leadership at the organization. We have 3 different programs. We have an energy policy program, we have a community partnership program, and then I work in the youth leadership. And I've been working at Project 90 now for 10 years. So it's incredible that 10 years has just gone by so quickly. But just to give you a little bit of history, so when I first started, we had leadership clubs in schools, and we were specifically looking at reducing people's carbon footprints. And at the time, it was really, it was centered around working with people from the kind of higher income earners. So we were working a lot with, private schools, and the kind of understanding at that time was that, you know, we need to work with people with the larger lifestyles, with the larger carbon footprints, and encourage them to lower their carbon footprints. But the thing is, with climate change, it's not their problem, it's our problem, it's everybody's problem. So more and more over the years, Project 90 by 2030 has really been looking at how can we work with the most vulnerable people in our society. So we've been, so I just want to go over a few little projects that we've done over the years. So these, back in 2011, we did a few demonstration sites. So we did a solar PV system at Johannesburg Zoo, and we also did a biodigester that was feeding gas into the restaurant there. We had a vertical wind turbine at the Two Oceans Aquarium. And there was also some solar PV that we put up there that was feeding into the administrative offices. And then again, at the Durban Botanical Gardens, we had a solar tracking, PV tracking system. So these were demonstration sites that were open to the public to kind of see and to be inspired by. And it's all very well that, you know, we were trying to speak to the people who were coming to those places, but not everyone can go to those places and see these things. And it's not necessarily open to the wider population of South Africa. So at this point of Project 90, there was a little bit of a switch. And one of our kind of biggest learnings, I guess, over the years is that people might be connected to the grid for electricity. And, you know, I haven't got the stats on me right now, but a large portion of the population of South Africa are connected. And there are still people who are not connected, but the people who are connected, they're not necessarily able to afford the electricity in their homes. And so this can lead to illegal connections, higher use of candles and paraffin for lighting purposes, and then wood fires to cook with. And so this can create dangers in their homes, in their community, causing house fires and poor air quality. So this is really when the term energy poverty started to kind of become real, and we started to kind of think, what can we do here? And I was looking at a study by the Heinrich Böll Foundation, and they say that if a household is using 10% of their income on energy, they are deemed energy poor. And so using this measure, 47% of households in South Africa are considered energy poor, 47%. This was back in 2013, so the figures are probably a little bit different now, but I wouldn't imagine they're hugely different. So if we apply that to our population today, we've got 60 million people living in South Africa. So that would equate to 28 million people living in energy poverty in South Africa, which is a lot of people. So there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that people aren't energy poverty stricken, and there needs to be other solutions to buying expensive forms of energy. In 2013, we started working. So we had a project in a village called Umsobomvu in the Eastern Cape, and it was a project that ran over 3 years. And over those 3 years, it was a community engagement process, and 270 households, they learned to build their own solar lighting systems, and they installed them into their houses. And then you can see this picture here. This is also, these are called Keep It bags. You might know them as Wonder Bags. Project 90 created our own version of that. But there was a whole kind of process around it where we would go to communities, we would help the communities make these Keep It bags. And it was also playing with the insulating material inside. So what could you put inside? What would be the most efficient material that you could use inside? And then coming into the Young Leaders program, where I've been working, in 2016, we noticed that a lot of young people have smartphones, and most young people have smartphones. No matter your background, people have phones or have access to a smartphone. So we really saw this need for this connection to be, for wanting to be connected. And so we started up a project called Playing with Solar. And we were working with high school youth at the time, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to learn a little bit about solar energy, to play with it, to understand electrical circuits, to play with a little bit of soldering, and assembling simple solar phone chargers. And we've been through many, many versions of this in the last kind of 4 years. And so I just want to show you a few pictures here. So this is kind of what it's looking like right now. So we have 2 versions of it. The first version is where, they're learning to solder, and they put together these little solar phone chargers. And then later on in the year, as part of our program, we do we do these things called light boxes. So they're very simple plastic boxes that have batteries and a solar charge controller, a solar panel, and it can be installed in any home. And you can have 3 LED lights and charge a cell phone off it. So our vision really is around inspiring and mobilizing a low carbon generation. And in order to achieve that vision, I was thinking about, what does it take to do that? And it's really like, it's taken a lot of time. It's time to understand where to start. And sometimes, a vision can be very big, and there's always a lot to be done. And it's a matter of, thinking about, where can I start? And it's just a matter of starting somewhere and moving with that. And once you start, get feedback and reflect on how you can improve what you're doing. And that's a cycle that just never kind of stops. To do what we do, we need partners. We can't do what we do without our partners. And with partners, it's important that you find people who know more than you do to help you achieve what you want to do. So I see Geordie's giving her hand. I guess we're going to have to finish there. Can I have 2 more minutes just to wrap up, Geordie?
Yes, sure.
So as partners, we need funds. We need to build trust in the people that we work with, the communities we work with. And we also need to create a unified team. And then, I just want, this is my kind of last slide. And this is really speaking to what is the most fulfilling aspect of what I do. And for me, it's really about the people that I get to meet and work with. Lots of different people, and to get to go to lots of different communities and places, and just seeing the difference that we are able to make really inspires me. And I really do mean this when I say it. I do really enjoy what I do. So just a little something to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was really great. We're going to move straight into our breakout rooms for the last 2 splits. So, see you on the other side. Wow, well, Louis got his last few words in perfectly around how to take forward an entrepreneurial dispensation around impact and revenue for a business idea. We've come to the end of the session, this final session. So I'd like to firstly just thank Louis and Daniel very much for being with us and for presenting and taking discussion in our last session. It was a brilliant kind of segue into this kind of idea of entrepreneurship and the potential to deliver to projects, to communities. So thank you very much for your time. You can slip away if you need to now. We're just going to round up this session with the Hilton guys.
Great. Thank you, Geordie. Thank you, everyone.
And just if you want more information about the incubation and how to participate to our programs, and we have lots of events and webinars also for high school students and students. So go on our Facebook page or on our website, and you can contact us directly, and it will be a pleasure to connect with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Louis.
Ditto here. If anyone wants to get in contact, ask any more questions, then please do. Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.